In this video, we're going to take a look at an orange ink by Pilot in their Iroshizuku line, Fuyu gaku, I'm not exactly sure, Winter Persimmon, and that's what I'm going to call it. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the orange ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do see some shading coming through in the extra fine, in the stub, in the extra fine, and in the medium. All of these shade very nicely. It really looks good on the page. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine. Extra fine took 5 seconds to dry, where medium took 9 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show a tiny bit of color variation, but it definitely stands out in the writing. And the smear test you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor 1911 with a music nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade on this paper. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub. The medium's a little bit darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub. The extra fine took 10 seconds to dry, where the medium took 17. Scrubby for both showed us no color variation, which we didn't get, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And I am going to say I'm very surprised by what makes up this orange. That bright pink at the bottom and very bright yellow at the top. I was surprised by that mix to get this. Now the one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water, really we don't see a difference between the two of them, so I don't expect any kind of resistance from this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do see shading in the stub, in the extra fine, and not nearly as much in the medium, but it's definitely there. You see in brown it's going darker to lighter to darker. I think it's very pronounced in the extra fine. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub, where the medium's about the same tone as the stub. The extra fine took 7 seconds to dry, while the medium took 12. The scrubby for the medium shows more color variation than the extra fine did, but I think it looked better in that extra fine writing. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's a bit of blowout that's occurring there that doesn't make me feel safe using it, even though I can read it. I guess you could if you really wanted to. I just wouldn't once I start seeing that blowout. Now water is completely reactivating and lifting it. We see some of the white of the paper coming through. It did only take water to get this out of my pen. Pen Flush did everything that water did and nothing more. 1/3 bleach solution completely obliterated it. The next writing sample is done on a Field Notes steno pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We have no shade, but this is a little bit more absorbent. The extra fine took 1 second to dry. The medium took 1 second to dry. This paper that's not known to be great with fountain pen did great here. The scrubby for both showed no color variation, and the smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Iroshizuku's Fuyu gaku has a viscosity of 1.77, making this a very wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests are done and all of that, then there's a link to that video down in the description. The next writing sample is done on Mead notebook paper. So we do see bleed spots that are occurring here with the medium. We do see a couple spots it's getting deeper with the extra fine. Not too worried about the scrubby. In general, I think this is really good performance on such cheap paper. You probably could use the back of the paper because it's not really ghosting. We have no feathering, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. It's not the greatest tone right here, but it is really good performance. The extra fine took 1 second to dry. The scrubby showed no color variation, yet got none. You definitely can't smear it, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm impressed with how well this did on such cheap paper. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Iroshizuku's Winter Persimmon has an average dry time of 10 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. The last writing sample is done on 28-pound copy paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. Oh, no focus. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have a little bit of feathering that's going on in the medium. It's really small, it's not a problem, it's not something that's going to stop you from using this. The extra fine has no feather. We have no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine's a little bit lighter than the stub. It only took a second to dry. The scrubby showed no color variation because there was none. The smear test, it didn't smear, so you don't have to worry about it. Really good performance here, very nice. Instead of finding inks that look like Iroshizuku's Winter Persimmon, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to put a nice green with this orange, and I went with Herbin Vert Pre. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description is a link to those playlists. So what do I think of Iroshizuku's Winter Persimmon? This is a very flat orange with almost no shading. It is pleasant on the page, but does lack that punch. Now, I didn't write it here, but it really did perform exceedingly well on cheap paper. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? You know, I originally wrote this that I thought it would have done very well with a medium flow medium, but then I tried it in a dry fine and it really looked the same, and I threw a little bit onto a very wet broad and it looked the same. This is dealer's choice. You get that same flat orange no matter what. So it's a very solid performer. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Ackerman's number 27.